Today on Locked On Red Wings, John Gibson is a Detroit Red Wing. Petr Mrazek goes back the other way, and we break down Yzerman's post-draft comments as well as the picks they made on day 2 of the NHL Draft.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley, and we have another episode, Scotty, just full of information. We're finally at a time in our lives this offseason where a constant stream of information is coming out of the woodwork. Obviously, this weekend we had the draft. We got rounds 2 through 7 to cover, but it is the secondary story to what happened on Saturday. That was the trade that brought John Gibson to the Detroit Red Wings, a trade that honestly became kind of a joke in the Red Wings fan base because the Wings were linked to him since at least going back to last offseason, if not further.
Dude, I think they've been linked. I feel like I can remember Gibson to Detroit rumors like during lockdown. Like I feel like this is like a 5 or 6 year long endeavor that has finally come to an end. But he is in fact going to be a Detroit Red Wing, and the return is Mrazek, a 2027 second and a 2026 fourth. I mean, we'll talk a lot about it. There's a couple of different angles here. One, how much of an upgrade is Gibson? What kind of role is he going to play? And then obviously the other side of it is, what you gave up. Is that going to be worth it for the next 2 years that he's under contract?
Yeah, and maybe you thought this was a trade that was going to happen, and if so, maybe you bet on it at FanDuel. I don't know if they do betting odds for trades, but it's the best transition I had. Sure right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Scotty, just right off the rip, right? Man, I was on the golf course when it happened. I was like, oh my God. I could not believe this trade actually finally happened. It's been rumored for so long. And when I saw the return personally, I was pretty happy about it. I'm like, in my opinion, this is a clear upgrade in net. You got rid of Petr Mrazek, who, I mean, his second stint here was a short one. But, we talked about it, one of the worst goaltenders in the league last year. Now, granted, he played for a really bad Chicago Blackhawks team, as did Gibson, behind a really bad Anaheim Ducks team. And you gave up, I think the biggest thing you gave up here was a second-round pick in, what'd you say, 2 years? That's something that has some value. The frequency in which fourth-round picks turn into NHL-caliber players isn't very high, so I'm very comfortable with the return on this trade, and I am pretty happy with the fact that we addressed the goaltending situation without giving up a ton. How'd you feel about it?
I think this is a massive win. I don't understand the hesitation or the pushback at all. Is John Gibson going to come in here and win a Vezina? No. Is he going to be the prime like Ducks Gibson from 4 to 5 years ago? Also no. Is he an immediate upgrade that you didn't really have to give up too much for? Absolutely. He had a 910 or a 911 save percentage a year ago behind a horrific Ducks blue line and Ducks defense. Like, he had a really nice bounce back season, and you didn't have to give up a first round pick. You also give up Mrazek. So like for this upcoming season, Gibson makes about a little bit over $2 million more than Mrazek does for this upcoming season. So your cap only goes up about that $2 million for this upcoming year. And then Gibson's on a 2-year deal. So if he does well, then you hold on to him and you have a primary goaltender for whatever it is, 6.5 million 2 seasons from now as well. He's 31 years old, 32 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like
31.
He's not ancient. Like I really don't see an issue with this, even if he is absolutely terrible. Okay, even if you do this trade and Gibson's going to go back to having an 888 save percentage, and you're just like, wow, like we didn't upgrade in net at all. You really gave up a second round pick 2 years from now. Like, that is the only like redeeming asset you gave up. And I think that is well worth the risk, even though it is a slight risk.
Right, and the reports are that the ask before this, back around the trade deadline, I believe, was Anton Johansson and your first. So a little bit of extra patience got you John Gibson at a much lower price. And I agree with everything you said. Like, best case scenario, he's able to return to his top 10. He has two, by the way, top 10 Vezina seasons in his career. Sure. He's won the Jennings before. Like, this is a Anaheim.
Joe Veleno on waivers for purposes of a buyout.
Wow. Then why did Seattle trade for him?
Just think it's interesting.
That is interesting.
Elliot Friedman literally just tweeted it while we were recording. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you, but it felt...
We were recording this at noon, full disclaimer, by the way, on Sunday. So there may be stuff that comes out between now and then we don't address. We'll talk about it tomorrow's episode. But yeah, back to John Gibson. Like, this is a guy who's has the highest upside out of any guy that you have put between your pipes since Jimmy Howard, maybe even before then.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's an argument it's earlier than that. Golly.
Right. This is a guy who has had incredible seasons, granted, with the Ducks when they were good, but even after the Ducks started to go into this teardown, the tail end of their competitive window, and into this full teardown, he was a good goalie for a long time. The 2022 season, he had a .904 save percentage. He has, and this is where people get cautious, and I don't blame people, Scotty, for being a little pessimistic about it, because we've had goalie woes. We've taken flyers on thousands of goalies in the past, hoping that their upside is there, and it hasn't worked out. Literally, you could name them. Again, since Jimmy Howard, right? Bernier, Greiss, Nedeljkovic, Husso, where it's just like you're gambling on guys giving you more than they can, and they do for a little bit.
Further and even throw Mrazek in there, to be honest.
Right.
Like original tenure. Yeah.
And so, like, the pessimism I get, and he had before this season where he had an incredible season in a backup role. I think he was like 12th in goals saved above expected with like 11 goals saved above expected this season. He had two back-to-back very poor seasons, 899 and 888, with two really bad Anaheim Ducks teams. And that's the thing I want to drill home the most. He was bad behind a very bad Ducks team. So it's not 100% on him. I am optimistic because I think he can bounce back. We've seen what good Gibson can be. The injury concerns are also very real. This is one of those trades where it was a good trade regardless of the outcome because you didn't give much up to get him. But I don't fault people for being, waiting to give their judgment until they actually see that he can do it. But I am optimistic that John Gibson will bring the most stability to the crease since Jimmy Howard was the starting goaltender for the Detroit Red Wings. I think John Gibson can have a nice, don't even want to call it a bounce back season. He already had the nice bounce back season, but bring back that consistency he used to have, even if it's not to that level where he was like, the one year he had a .926 save percentage. I'm not expecting that.
Yeah, that's
but if he can be like .905, like that's still way better than anything we've had.
Right, and I think that is, again, in terms of like asset management, it's just so worth the risk of what you gave up. Again, like the only real asset you parted ways with was a second rounder in 2027. Like this is just so worth the risk, and it's not a guarantee. I want to make that abundantly clear. Like, I'm not trying to make it sound like there's just some foregone conclusion that Gibson is gonna, necessarily work out or be the answer in that for the next 2 years. But given what the Wings gave up in this deal, and given the ceiling that Gibson has, and given the again potential stability that you could gain from this, it is just so worth taking a chance on it and giving up what they gave up for him. And yeah, if it doesn't, then I guess you're right back where you are. But you're only really missing out on a second round pick 2 years from now. And if it does, then you're talking about having a solidified high end goaltender in net. So I think it's well worth the risk that is absolutely there.
Well, yeah, because the risk is the risk is you have the same problem you've been having and you gave up very little to do it. I'm not worried about it. Like, I know he makes $2 million more than Mrazek, and some people will point to that as a point of concern. But look at what the market is going for with goaltending. Yzerman even said it when he acquired Mrazek, which this also makes me question why we acquired Mrazek in the first place. Again, because we just dealt him after 7 games, but that's a different conversation.
He had a lot of value, dude. He got us John Gibson. What are you talking about?
Right. Actually kind of crazy. A guy who got bought out basically got us John Gibson. But anyways,
Well,
Joe Veleno
picks
in a
got
roundabout way.
Gibson. I don't think,
If you look at the
Petr
trade
Mrazek was too
tree,
big of a part of that, but yeah.
well, I'm talking about Joe Veleno.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess. Yeah, I don't really know about
the
that
trade
either,
tree,
but yeah.
you go down it. But the $6 million, like, that is going to be par for the course. Yzerman said it in his trade deadline media availability. What goaltending is going for right now is exorbitant, and the market is very thin. John Gibson is better than any goaltender that is on the free agent market right now.
Right.
So
what else could you have done?
Right.
What else could you have done to improve goaltending? You weren't going to get anybody better than Gibson in the free agent market. That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So then you're just talking about getting a better player in a trade. And if that is the market, then you would have had to give up more than you just gave up for said player. And, once you get well above Gibson, then you're talking about like the guys that are making, 8 to 12 mil and are under contract for the next 7 years. You're not going to get any of them. Like this is, I don't want to say it's like the necessarily slam dunk, obvious best case scenario for the Wings in net. I don't know if I want to go that far, but it's certainly the best of a difficult situation.
Yes.
I think it's one of the only ways that they could have improved in that. I really have zero issue with this deal at all, even though it's not a guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, it was the best case scenario in a thin market to acquire John Gibson, who's been talked about being traded for a long time. It's what else could you have done? And plus, also, Yzerman made a trade, guys. He improved the roster. Like, we just did an episode on Friday talking about how the fans are frustrated that we're never in on these. And granted, like, I'm not trying to say John Gibson is some all-star, but now he's out there and he's addressing these needs. So, like, let's take a breath, everyone. Like, he made the roster better. We have a better goaltender. It remains to be seen which Gibson we're going to get, and that is going to be the roll of the dice, but it was the best of a very thin market, and it was a good trade. It was a win of a trade because you barely gave anything up.
Yeah. Agreed.
So stay tuned to segment 2 of Lockdown Red Wings, where we'll talk about rounds 2 through 7 of the NHL draft. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Segment 2, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, day 2 of the draft took place on Saturday, and the Red Wings drafted a bunch of guys that I am not too familiar with, but we will run through it and give you our just first initial impressions on each of these guys. A lot of names to cover, so it's going to be quick. First and foremost, Scotty, in the second round, the Red Wings drafted winger Eddie Genborg. At 44th overall, 6'2", 205 pounds, over 200 pounds already. Profiles as a physical two-way forward. He is Swedish. Go figure. We love our Swedish two-way forwards that are big boys. It seems to be a trend.
Yeah. There's actually, as you get deeper into the draft, there's less and less information on a lot of these guys, but there's actually a decent amount on him, and it seems to be just kind of the slam dunk Red Wings Yzerman profile, right? Like big body, you hope can develop on both sides of the ice, and you hope that he can use his size as kind of an advantage throughout his development. But I mean, again, as we get further, there will be even less and less to break down, and it'll be names that, come from smaller and smaller leagues or places or whatnot. But yeah, I think that there was kind of a general reading the scouting reports and whatever that came out after. I think there was a general excitement about that one for sure.
I mean, he is, like you said, he's an Yzerman archetype. He's a heavy hitter, high motor, two-way forward, the type of stuff that they already in love when it comes to drafting anybody, right? Forward or defense. Big thing with him is he's already playing in the SHL. He played in the SHL last season for 28 games. He's going back to the SHL this year. So already take a huge step in his development, playing with the big boys over in Sweden. So keep an eye on Genborg. Next up, Scotty, they took a goalie in the third round. Michael Pradel, Yzerman loves drafting goalies. 6'5", big boy, 198 pounds. This kid is Slovakian. He is currently playing in the USHL with the Tri-City Storm. We'll see if that's where he goes back to next year. Doesn't look like they have his commitment on here yet.
Yeah. This is really the only thing I have to say about this one is everybody needs to calm down.
I know.
I saw the fan base lose their marbles because they drafted a goalie in the third round after trading for John Gibson. Dude, like, Gibson's going to be on Social Security when this dude is ready for the NHL. Like that, this is not this does not correlate at all. Like John Gibson is going to be in a retirement home by the time this dude is ready to play NHL hockey, if he ever even is. So, like, people need to take a deep breath and calm down. That is an absolute non-factor and a nothing burger. But yeah, I mean, this is an organization in terms of goalie depth outside of the NHL level that obviously has two prospects that people are excited about in Kosa and Augustine. Outside of that, it gets pretty thin pretty quickly. There's a couple of guys just over the years that at points people have maybe been excited about, and then maybe it's cooled off or whatnot. So if this is a guy that can develop down the road into even a backup goalie, for a third round pick, I mean, would be kind of a win. So we'll see if maybe he can get on the train a little bit and be a guy that, again, can maybe improve the organizational depth at goalie. Not everyone is going to be a superstar. Not everyone's going to be a high-end, elite, A-tier goalie prospect. If they can even improve just the depth, again, of the position top to bottom in the organization, that'd be a win. So
it's like getting mad over taking a center because you already have Dylan Larkin. Like,
right.
Every draft, you should always take a goalie because that way you always have an option in the development cycle. He's 5-6 years away. He's a goaltender. It's going to take him forever to be ready for the NHL if he develops, right?
One of the most absurd things I've ever seen people get mad about. Like, genuinely.
And goalies are they're so volatile. You never know, like, who's going to pan out and who's going to fall off a cliff.
Right.
So every year taking a goalie is just a wise organizational decision. You give yourself a plan. So, yeah, Pradel, I mean, he's a big guy who's got high mobility. He tracks pucks through screens really well. There is upside to him that I think was definitely worth taking in the third round of the NHL draft. It's not like you wasted a first on him. Next up, you got Brent Solomon. You got him out of the fourth round, 109 overall. He played with the Sioux Falls Stampede in the USHL this last year. Right wing, 6 foot, 172 pounds. Put up 6 points in 8 games with Sioux Falls after he made the jump to the USHL. Prior to that, he played in high school, it looks like, with Minnesota. So this is another guy, just high motor.
For sure. I mean, at this point in the draft, you're kind of just taking profiles more than results, right? You're not even like the stats and what they have produced doesn't even really matter because you're talking about guys either from small teams or small leagues in general and whatnot. So this is from here on out, you're kind of just looking at guys that fit the Red Wings development profile and what they think they can develop as an organization. Right. And you just take players that fit that mold, like genuinely. That's really what you're looking for. And obviously he does that. And
notably, he's a shooter. One of the big things they talk about in his profile is that he is a high volume shooter with precision placements. He likes to drive the net for those shots. That's the big thing about Solomon. Next, you get to probably what people are calling the most underrated pick or sneaky pick the Red Wings took all draft in the later in the fourth round. They took Michael Zvrešik? I don't know. He's a Slovakian playing in the SHL. Dude, there was one vowel and it came a letter before the final.
There's one vowel.
It's at the very end of his last name.
Have you seen the Chance the Rapper SNL skit where he goes, "That's a," and he's like, says, "That's a whatever, a K, a J, and an L." He goes, "So that's a nope." Like
This is a guy who was projected to go higher in the draft. Some people, even Tony Ferrari, had him as high as 19 on his draft board. Most people had him between like 50 and 100, though. Yeah. Red Wings got him at 119. He is a smaller winger at just 5'11". It's so funny that as soon as they hit 5'11", they're considered smaller, but at 6 foot, they're fine. 190 pounds. He is a guy who has a lot of skill, but just kind of plays on the fringes, and so it's going to be about whether or not his skill can outweigh the inconsistencies with his physicality because he's on the smaller side. But he's already playing in the SHL, and he worked his way to playing consistent minutes with SHL by the end of the season. So he has continually improved his game as it goes on to see if so the Red Wings taking a flyer on a guy who has been proven that he can adjust to higher levels of play and be productive at higher levels of play with each step he's taken.
Yeah, and this is another one where, like, even if it doesn't work out, it's almost certainly worth the risk, right? Like, you're talking about your second pick in the 4th round, like, or your 5th round. Yeah, like, it's worth taking a shot and seeing if the guy that, you know, some people had valued really highly is worth it at this point in the draft. And yeah, to your point, I mean, a lot of the maybe hesitation or the reason he fell is just a matter of whether he'll be able to adjust physically, but certainly has the skill to be a pretty good player. So we'll see.
Yes. Then let's knock these next 3 out pretty quick because we got to get to a break. You got Nikita Turian from Russia. He's a defenseman, 6 foot, 174 pound, puck-moving defenseman. So nice to see another puck-moving defenseman in the organization. Playing in the MHL, which I believe is a tier or 2 below the KHL. I think it's 1 tier below the KHL. Over in Russia, 20 points in 50 games. You got Will Murphy in the 6th round. He was drafted 172 overall, 6'4" defenseman, big boy. And he loves to use his size. So that's something that's nice to see. He's playing in the QMJHL with Cape Breton Eagles. And you got Graydon Robertson Palmer, who is a left shot center, 5'11", 196 pounds. And yeah, so that's all of it. He's going to Dartmouth. So he's committed to go play college hockey.
Yeah. Yeah, which is, you know, I really have no problem with anybody that late going to play in the NCAA, yeah.
Yeah, so a great NCAA is such a great development league too.
For sure, especially for later round picks, you kind of want them to, yeah.
Right, because the NCAA plays like the closest to NHL style hockey in North America. So, right. For amateur. Let's go to another break. When we return, we will talk about Yzerman's press conference comments. Stay tuned. Segment 3 of Lockdown Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked on Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty. Yzerman had a media availability, and he was, again, very open with his thoughts on this year's free agency and trade and draft. And it seems like since this end of the season, he's kind of been more upfront with things, for better and for worse. What stood out to you the most about his media availability?
I mean, quite a bit, to be honest. I think... really, the thing that I don't know if this is like the number one thing that was talked about, but the thing that maybe frustrated me the most was it sounds like they're not going to buy anybody out.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. Like I understand that the trade-off with buyouts is not always the best, and I think fans kind of jump the gun on that a lot, and just if like anybody's underperforming ever, that's just like, let's just buy them out. Like that you can't do that. That's not how it works. You would just owe $1 billion every offseason.
Right.
But it really, and maybe I'm just like dumb, but I really don't answer that. I really don't understand the Justin Hall making it through. Like everybody else on the roster, you can kind of give, a reasoning as to maybe why it doesn't make as much sense, whatever. I genuinely cannot comprehend why it makes sense to not buy out Justin Hall. I really can't wrap my head around that decision.
Yeah. Let me play devil's advocate.
Please. I'm looking for any sort of reason that clicks in my brain.
And I'm just making it clear, I'm playing devil's advocate. That does not mean I advocate for keeping him. It just means that this would be the counter argument. I want to buy out Justin Hall. I think it's just for the best of the team. Here's what I'm thinking. He's got 1 year left on his deal, so maybe Yzerman just thinks that it's easier to eat that year than have it on the cap for next season. It's only $1 million, so I disagree with that sentiment, but that could be a reason. If, they bought him out, it'd be $1 million, I should say. Other reason is he is a right shot D-man. You buy Justin Hall out, now you have to shop for another right shot D-man on the open market, where if you buy him out, that's $1 million for 2 years, and then you're going to have to pay another right shot D-man to replace him, and that could then cost you more money than just keeping Justin Hall on the market or on the roster and playing in the same role as whomever you would bring in. Nick Perbix, for example, would just be a more effective third pair right side D-man, but cumulatively, it would probably cost you more. The other reason is, remember what happened at the start of last season before injuries happened? You could just send him down, and that would also give you a little bit of cap relief. Wouldn't give you as much cap relief, but it would give you some cap relief, and then you could just keep him in the minors for a year. He'd have to clear waivers, but if someone takes him, then you're off scot-free, and I think you get like $1.5 million in cap relief if he's down in the minors. Again, I think just buy him out is the simplest solution. Everyone thinks that because everyone is always talking about how he's a buyout candidate. But if I were to try to rationalize why we want to keep him on the roster, those would be the three things that stick in my mind.
Which are all fair points. I just disagree that any of those are more valuable than buying him out.
Yes.
Like just straight up. Like I don't think any of those are more beneficial to the organization or are more valuable to the Detroit Red Wings than just simply buying him out.
Yep. I agree. I was just, again, that was devil's advocate.
For sure.
Other thing, Anton Johansson's going back to Sweden. That was his decision. I'm actually surprised by that because he played pretty well in his stint with the Griffins. I'm surprised he didn't want to stay in North America, but he just thought it was better for him to play another year in the SHL. So he's going back, and they are talking about signing Red Savage, whose rights are set to expire in August, to a contract. There have been discussions had. Friend of the program, which would be really cool to keep Red Savage in the organization. He was the captain of the Michigan State Spartans this last season.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's a guy that you kind of could foresee becoming a bottom six, kind of physical, grinded out player too.
He also confirmed what we were thinking about why they kept Lagesson is because he was good in Grand Rapids and good for the group. And Lagesson made it known that he wanted to return, and so they said, hey, that makes sense. Let's bring him back. The other big one, excuse me, I have just...
Wow, that was a good dab.
Thanks. The other big one, Scotty, is that he said he's not optimistic about free agency because there's not a lot of depth. There's like a couple top-tier guys, and then it gets really thin after that, and all the teams are in on that, which... Yeah, I don't love hearing that from I appreciate the honesty, but I don't love hearing that from my general manager that he is not optimistic he can lure people here because that's your job. That is what the money's for, as one of my friends says.
For sure, yeah. I agree with you. I think that this is... I think he's kind of right.
He is. No, he's right.
Right.
Like, I don't like hearing it, though.
You don't love to hear it straight from the mouth that feeds you, per se, but like I kind of agree with him. I think it probably will be difficult to get like higher end free agents here, but at the end of the day, like you have roster flexibility, you have roster space, and you have cap. Like there is really, as you just said, it's his job to figure it out, whether it's a free agent or whether it's via trade. That's totally fine, but there's no reason for this team not to add a lot more this summer.
Yeah, so he's right. I on one hand respect the honesty, but on two, it almost feels like setting us up to like lowering our expectations going into free agency to like set us up for disappointment. And I don't love that. He can be right. Doesn't mean I have to like it.
I agree.
The other aspect of that, though, is he did say that because of that, they are continuing to explore the trade market, which I think was like the flip side of the coin. It's like, okay, well, at least you understand, like, you got to do something here.
Right.
And he did notably say, like, he's looking at like 2 right now. Unless I misinterpreted what he had said, but it sounded like he said they're looking at a couple of options right now to upgrade the roster. So just so the fans are aware, he is exploring the trade market further to continue to upgrade this roster. Now he has to get it done. It's a huge thing. You got to get it done. But it's nice to know that is what's being explored. And that is, I think we talked about it, like with all the RFAs that are available. Like, that is the best way to improve your roster. You don't have to lure players here that way. You just have to convince the other team the trade is worth it.
Well, and all the assets that the Wings have. Like, they are sitting on a ton of young talent in the system. Like, they are consistently ranked as one of the best and one of the better, like, farm systems in hockey. And you have cap space as well, so you can trade for somebody and then extend them. Like, they have the resources to make trades, and they just haven't. The only thing that I don't know gives me pause or like worry is just I feel like the last 2 off seasons the Wings have been part of talks, and then Yzerman says, well, the price got too high, so then we backed out. And he's done that for free agents, he's done that for trades, etc. Like, it's great to be involved in talks, but like you gotta have the guts to pull trigger on it at some point.
Yeah, and I think the only other thing that stood out to me was that he is confident he will get a deal done with Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
So basically, it sounded as if the way I interpreted it was the reason it hasn't been done yet is just because it's been such a busy time that they haven't had a chance to sit down and hammer out the details with Patrick. But he's confident they'll get it done, and he will stay with the Detroit Red Wings. My counter to that would be like, well, you had like a month and a half before trade draft season really ramped up to hammer it out, but okay. I don't know the inner workings.
It takes 2 to tango. That might have been,
right.
On Kane's side too. So.
Very true. Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball.
We do ball. That was a lot of information this episode. Yeah. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for tomorrow. We will do our final free agency preview and probably talk about the Marner situation because Toronto might be alleging tampering against Vegas, and it's very interesting. So I'll do that as well. So stay tuned. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.